In the meantime, Germany has warned that the new U.S. sanctions against Russia could lead to an undesirable trade war. The German economy minister, Brigitte Zypries, emphasized that the European Commission should consider countermeasures as Washington's anti-Russia trade barriers harm European corporations. Zypries slammed the U.S. Congress legislation for, quote, being against international law, plain and simple. Berlin is alarmed over the impact of these sanctions on the country's economy, since German companies may no longer be able to work on Russia's pipeline projects out of fear for high fines in the U.S. Germany accuses Washington of using the measure as a tool of its industrial policy in favor of American firms. Last week, U.S. Congress slapped a package of sanctions on Moscow, accusing it of destabilizing the region and manipulating the 2016 U.S. presidential election.
Finally, Russia engaged in an unprecedented attack against our democracy when it interfered in our 2016 elections.
Left unchecked, Russia is sure to continue its aggression.
Russia engaged in a blatant effort to meddle in our domestic affairs and specifically our democratic process.
Do you still believe that the passage, the overwhelming votes in Congress to pass that, was a sign that the American people want Russia to take steps to improve the relationship?
I think the American people want the two most powerful nuclear nations in the world to have a better relationship. I don't think the American people want us to have a bad relationship with a huge nuclear power. But I think they are frustrated. And I told President Putin when I saw him in the Kremlin in March, and I've told Foreign Minister Lavrov repeatedly, the situation's bad, but believe me, it can get worse. And it just did. The action by the Congress to put these sanctions in place in the way they did, neither the President nor I are very happy about that. We were clear that we didn't think it was going to be helpful to our efforts, but that's the decision they made.
Well, you would imagine, yes. Remember, there is several ongoing investigations into whether or not Russia meddled in the US presidential election and whether or not there was collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign. So obviously, this was getting a lot of attention. In fact, it's been on his desk all weekend. But President Trump says in this statement that his concerns are actually about the constitutional overreach of Congress. In other language, basically, he's saying they're stepping on his toes. They're saying that he's saying that the language in this bill basically binds part of the hands of his administration when he's trying to negotiate business with Russia and when he's trying to negotiate perhaps staff going in and out of Russia, because this bill includes visas and it also limits his ability to lift or waive sanctions on Russia. So Congress have almost boxed him in, so to speak, when it comes to these Russian sanctions, and he doesn't like it.
Energy policy is not just a vital element of U.S. economic policy, but it's also a vital element of U.S. foreign policy. And one of the most important actions we can take is to use our massive shale gas resources to begin shipping liquefied natural gas overseas.
All this excess natural gas we have now, which they don't want to leave in the U.S. because it will lower the price and profits, they want to export it, particularly to Europe. Well, if you're going to export it to Europe, you got to reverse the relationship and dependency of Germany and others on Russian gas. So this gas play here, this energy play, is deep and behind the scenes economically for the United States here.
We are following this process with some concern regarding the European Union's energy independence and our energy security interests.
Well, one thing they can do is they can make sure that what the US is seeking to do doesn't apply to European companies. And the focus of this debate is the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which Western Europe is very, very committed to actually seeing completed. And that investment at the moment is being threatened by this US initiative.
That's a hardline view which is actually not shared in all European capitals. For example, in Warsaw, there's no appetite for a rift with the Trump administration. There's also no appetite in Warsaw and other Eastern European capitals for more energy dependence on Russia. So the challenge now for EU leaders is to find unity within the European Union on this issue of the sanctions, and also at the same time to avoid any rift between Europe and the United States, because the worry among EU leaders in Brussels is that any such rift is simply going to benefit Russia.
Russia is fighting the sanctions war with fruit and vegetables. Counter-sanctions have banned the import of all food from the United States and fresh fruit from Europe, where Russia was by far the biggest importer. At this agricultural exhibition in Moscow, they're now seeking other overseas markets to fill the gap. This Belgian fruit exporter now finds himself frozen out of the lucrative Russian market.
And we blame a little bit our own European politicians, which intervene in Russian politics where they shouldn't do that, to our personal opinion at least.